Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Amber from the Graduate Students Club of School of Material Science and Engineering, and I'm very happy to be here as your host for today. Thank you for joining us for this webinar on the enlightening topic, My Journey in Research by distinguished speaker, Prof Loh Xian Jun, the Executive Director from IMRI, A-STAR. Before we start, I would like to remind everyone about some housekeeping rules. All attendees' mics have been muted to prevent any accidental disturbance to the presenter. If you would like to ask questions during the Q&A session, you can use the raise hand feature at the bottom of your Zoom screen. When your name is called, you may unmute yourself and ask your questions. Alternatively, you can also post your questions in the Q&A box. Our moderators will be happy to assist you. Thank you all for your cooperation. Today's webinar is part of the IAS at NTU STEM Graduate Colloquium series, which feature appealing topics by accomplished scientists and engineers from academia and industry. This event is jointly organized by the NTU Institute of Advanced Studies, the Graduate Student Clubs of School of Physical and Mathematical Sciences, SPMS, Material Science and Engineering, MSE, as well as Electrical and Electronic Engineering, EEE. So before we invite Prof Loh to share about his journey in research, I would first like to invite Prof Chen Xiaodong, the President's Chair Professor in Material Science and Engineering, and also the Director of Innovative Center of Flexible Devices at NTU, to deliver his welcome address. Prof Chen and Prof Loh have collaborated closely on various of R&D projects over the years, and I could not think of anyone better to do this. Prof Chen, please.
Thanks, Lee. First of all, welcome Xian Jun. Not come over, right? At least it's by online. Give a talk to NTU students. Definitely, personally, I'm very pleasure. It's really, Xian Jun has the chance to talk with us, and also, I think it's great honor for our students have this chance to hear from Xian Jun as well. I know Xian Jun for a long time, more than maybe 10 years already. Since I think in a way, sometimes I talk with Xian Jun, so we grow together. In the way I start from assistant professors, and then Xian Jun start also my kind of junior faculty, kind of researcher. Now today, Xian Jun become very senior already, and now he's the executive director in IMRI already. In the meanwhile, also I'm getting old, right, to be full professor here. So this is something I would say is really kind of opportunity, and also great chance. I see how Xian Jun grow, and also Xian Jun see how I became a bit merchant. Okay, so I think I would say for Xian Jun is really kind of role model for all the young students, graduate students, or research fellow to follow. This is something I always mentioned to a lot of people. You can see for Xian Jun was really, he was born in Singapore. So that's he was kind of invented in Singapore, developed in Singapore. Now become some kind of Singapore model already in terms of materials research. And I believe more people, not only material research from different engineering science field, also can follow his roadmap. He was very early batch, national science scholar. It's more like a early announced A-STAR scholar, right, Xian Jun, right? Program. So then he decided, it means get a scholarship, it means you can go everywhere, but he decided to stay in the US to start his undergraduate study in polymer science related. And then later get A-STAR graduate scholarship to do the PhD in US as well, to develop this kind of biodegradable polymers. I believe later he may share more about his experience, starting maybe from early, how his graduate research look like. But in a way, I would say, in one sentence, I can describe this kind of academic excellence. He's really kind of academic excellence to really, it's the one people really push himself a lot, become excellent in terms of academic and also research. Later, I will hear share more. And now in terms of research innovation, I still remember, for Xian Jun, he always mentioned a lot about this kind of how to make impact. I would say making impactful to this community is a kind of research, kind of more motivation. So I believe later he will share you more about his kind of research experience, innovation inspiration, how he developed this kind of thermal polymers, okay, for this kind of different application, not only about this kind of normal, this kind of materials application or a lot of this kind of clinical application. I believe he will show later as well. Lastly, I will share one more description about him. I would say kind of commitment and leadership. Now today you can see he played a very important role to head the bigger research institute in the material science emery in Singapore. And also he's the president for the Singapore National, what's the full name? Singapore National Institute of Chemistry.
Institute of Chemistry, yeah.
Yeah, so I always cover society, but anyway, so he's the president. He's, I would say, the youngest president so far. So this is always, he break a lot of record already. Always, youngest, okay? But of course, I'm looking for he even break more record about youngest. Okay, I think without say too much, let's leave the stage to Xian Jun for his small sharing. Okay, welcome, Xian Jun.
Okay, thanks, Xiaotong. Thanks. As I mentioned, it's really a pleasure to be invited here and also to be introduced by my good friend. As Xiaotong mentioned, he's somebody that I know for many years already, and a lot of collaborations, ideas have been exchanged between us. And this is actually one of the first lessons already, right? Within the first few minutes, that one of the first things that we must always have are friends that you can count on whenever you want to bounce off some ideas or things like that. And I feel that over these years, I'm very privileged to have had very good colleagues, very good mentors. I know some people were asking me about who inspires me. I'll go into that a little bit later. I will also have to also thank, of course, the people who work really hard in my lab. Sometimes, they join me upon graduation, whether it is undergraduate or postgraduate, and you gradually see them develop their skills over time. And this is something that I feel that one should do, and find meaning in it. And today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about my journey in research. I hope I don't sometimes come across as rambling, but during this maybe 1 hour or so, I'm going to go into a little bit about how I first started my journey, how I first started my research. I'll talk about some of the key tips that you will probably need as you go through a life as an academic or as a researcher. And I will probably end up with a few key advice. I think I have 3 slides of that. Okay. So for this kind of sharing sessions, typically, I'm also fine to have interactions. So feel free to post questions anytime that you think of it, and I'll try to answer them, as we come towards the end. All right. Hang on. So a little bit about me, first of all, is that I've got my degree, as Xiaodong mentioned, from NUS. So back in those days, I had a lot of fond feelings of Singapore, of course. I thought that, in NUS, you could really make a name for yourself. And also, I had by then already established some sort of a liking for research. And I'll elaborate more about that a bit later. In fact, I started my research during my college days. So that was sometime in 1998. Okay, that was when I first went into a lab. And this is a local lab. It's not a foreign overseas lab. And I was very impressed by that. So I had some of the contacts that I made. So I went do my research, and then after that I went to the army, and during that time I thought very hard. So I had got accepted into various overseas universities, and really I thought maybe there's no place better than doing it in Singapore. So I decided to embark on my undergraduate and then subsequently my postgraduate in Singapore. And during those times after you graduated, you became automatically a research officer in the institute. So this is as much as my own story, but also how how I can go through all the ranks in this institute. Now I'm the executive director, but I think that a lot of it is not just on how to climb, but it's also on how to understand what everybody at different level is going through. And I can say that within the institute in IMRI, nobody is able to understand the full spectrum of the different positions as well as me. I did a 2-year break in Cambridge as a visiting fellow, so that's from 2010 to 2012, and that was also supported by A-Star. And I came back right at 2012, given different appointments, and subsequently I was also roped in to join SNIC, Singapore National Institute of Chemistry. I served as the vice president for about 3 years, and then at the last election I got to become the president. So these are a lot of on the surface, right, on paper it looks like it's a very nice position, but there's more to it than just having positions. But let me just go very briefly into what I'm only known for in science. It's this thing. If you look at this type of solution, you can see on the left-hand side of the GIF that I developed a liquid that is flowable at room temperature. And then at 37 degrees, it forms a gel. So this is something that I've developed way back in 2005, even before my PhD. This is called thermogelling polymer. And I've been exploring the use of this kind of materials all the way since undergraduate even, yeah. Back in the very early days, I was looking into temperature responsive polymers. And when I came into the university, I had the chance to work on my own project. So this was a sort of project which I undertook during what you call industrial attachment, or IA. And I did my industrial attachment in IMRI, of all places, right? So besides being a research officer, I was also once an intern at IMRI. And I developed this material quite simply because, when I was asking my supervisor then, for funding, he said, he had no funding for students. You can just open the chemical cupboard and you try to synthesize whatever you can from whatever we have in the chemical cupboard. So I pieced together a few polymers, like Lego blocks, and that was what I came up with. And to this day, I'm known for this. I'm known for thermogels, I'm known for hydrogels, as well as biomaterials. And these hydrogels, they are really good for retinal detachment surgeries. They are potentially very useful vitreous substitutes. And we also discovered, quite serendipitously that these kinds of materials actually allow for the vitreous to regenerate, which is the first time that, things have been shown to work like this in the eye. So, and I'm only known for this one thing. But how did I build my career, right? Which is what you may be interested in. Actually, it all started here. I don't know how many of you actually know where this place is, but it is the current NUS Bukit Timah campus. Okay, the current Bukit Timah campus. It used to be the NIE. Now NIE is in NTU. They have this nice big few buildings down there. But back in those days, NIE was located quite near Orchard Road, actually. And this is the front of the building. This part is where all the equipments are kept. The NMR room then was somewhere around here as well. And I came here as a JC student. I was part of this a science research program. No, it's not called science. It's a scientific research program. Okay? Science research program is an NUS one. There's an NTU one, which is known as a technology engineering research program, TERP. That's an NTU version. And I was immediately posted to this place. And little did I know that it was in this building here and here that I would have actually one of my most enjoyable times in research. This is a very whole building, and their facilities are nowhere like what you have in NTU right now. It's laid back, it's backward, and for example, to even have a 300 megahertz NMR was like a dream come true at that time. And I remember, for those of you who are chemists, we used to have FTIR that generated the results. So they are printouts, okay? The printouts from the FTIR were printed using a plotter. So you can see this thing drawing the lines up and down, and after that, when we wanted to publish the paper, we had to trace up the NMR trace, and that was really fun days, because a lot of times you were more thinking about creative pursuits, how to innovate, because we didn't have much computer then. And at that time, I think a lot of you now use Web of Science. At that time, Web of Science was also only the first few versions. That's very rudimentary, very poor. And the way we used to look for literature was by flipping through the journals in the library. So this is in Bukit Timah in NIE. And I was always asked by my mentor at that time, the PhD supervisor, PhD student, to go to NUS Central Library to collect the references, and I would photocopy. I'll spend my days photocopying and all that. So those are the happy days. And one of the questions was also about who really inspired me in those early days. And let me just start by sharing you this video. This video is something that I took when I was a JC kid. I was participating in the National Science Talent Search, and this is something which very few people have seen. Let me just show you. But back in those days, I was working on a temperature responsive and light responsive polymer. I was also in air rifle and also basketball. And those days, so that's me looking really grumpy. Working on temperature responsive smart windows that can respond to light, that can respond to heat. That's my mentor, Professor Gan Leong Huat from NIE. He has already retired, but he's one of my most significant mentors that I have in my career. That's me in my film hood. So in the early days, right, when you work in a film hood, no need gloves, no need goggles, no need lab coat and that kind of thing. And I think I credit Prof Gan for the early days in motivating me. He used to say one thing, when you publish a paper, you are considered an immortal, so it's immortalized, right? And back in those days, when you publish a paper, it's recorded in a journal, it's printed, there's a volume number, page number, and all that. And I got really intrigued by that thought, and it really spurred me on to do this a little bit more and to try to carry out research. And you see, during that time, I was already playing around with temperature responsive polymers. And these temperature responsive polymers subsequently became the building blocks that I harnessed as I was building up these thermogelling polymers. So you can see that all the knowledge that you slowly pick up, all the chemical knowledge and all that, right? They were invaluable to me, and it allowed me to understand a little bit more about how I could harness these materials for other purposes, for future benefit. So that was the early days, then that was in NTU. And this is when I suppose my life changed. This is during the National Science Talent Search award presentation ceremony. And I think you can see me over there looking slightly grumpy. I won the merit prize, right? Which explains why I looked a bit grumpy, because I wanted to win the first prize. I didn't win it. So, and that's me. That's BG Giorgio, at that time, Second Minister for Trade and Industry. And that was that time that I was given the opportunity to carry out the scholarship. Oh, this is Xingyi when she was much younger as a JC student. Just a sidetrack, Xingyi is now my best collaborator in my retinal detachment work. Actually, the work that I was talking about, the thermogel that regenerated the vitreous, is actually jointly done together with her. She's a clinician who helped me, and I'm the one who's making the materials. So, we go way back. This is 1999. A lot of people still say that, I guess, they still see a little bit of similarity in the looks, so we didn't quite change. Good for me, because I know that maybe I'm not aging that much. And I think that scholarship set me on the path to what I am today. And just to summarize that scholarship, right? It's an 8-year scholarship, so you get the education paid for undergraduate and postgraduate for 8 years, and then there was at that time an 8-year bond, but later on they shortened it to a 6-year bond. So it's actually a 14-year commitment. And bear in mind that at that time I was 18 years old. I signed up for the rest of my 14 years of my life without quite knowing what the future has in store for me. Although I just knew that I really like research. So here's my path. That bit was the undergraduate bit. I mean the JC bit. But here's my path. 2002, 2006 as an undergrad, and then I did what you call a 1-year research attachment. 2006 and 2007. That was the time that I was a research officer in IMRI. I done my PhD in 2007 and to 2009 in NUS and also the lab in IMRI. 2010 to 2012, I went over to Cambridge. 2012 to 2015 was when I spent building up my career. So these are different parts of my career, and it ends right here, 2020 to the present, where I take on the leadership role in the institute. And this chart is actually supposed to show what I went through, right? And the frustrations I went through. Maybe some of you can identify with this. So I started work in a research laboratory in year 1 of undergraduate, and I actually did quite a lot of work already. I signed up for this Number one, because I was very interested in research. Number two, because if you join a research lab, normally they have printers, right? Printers. And I could print my lecture notes for free in the lab. So that was an added benefit of it. So I actually volunteered to this professor, Professor Suresh, and I said that Professor Suresh in NUS, I said, I'm willing to work in your lab for free. So he said, okay, just come in. He was very welcoming. And I was working on things like biomineralization. I was working on things like looking at how peptides and proteins influence the stability of amorphous calcium carbonate. I was looking at how to characterize proteins using GPC, Western blot, etc. I had a lot of results, right? And I was very keen on publishing. And I published about 5 to 6 papers by the end of undergrad. But as an undergrad, right, I think we all go through the same thing. We don't have our own project. What we are doing is usually tagged on to maybe a PhD student's project or something else, right? And there was no chance to start my own work. So I wanted to do polymer, but when I went to the lab, they were only doing biomineralization and looking at how proteins influence that. So protein was the closest link to a polymer for me. So it's still a big molecule and all that. So I kind of accepted it. And there are no first author papers, right? Because the PhD student needed the first author papers. So that was a source of a little bit of frustration at that time. Then came my PhD years, where because I had a bit of research experience prior to all this, in fact, I would say that by 2007, I had the equivalent of 3 years of research experience. So 1 year as an intern, 1 year as a final year project student, and 1 year as a research attachment student. And I managed to ramp up really fast because I had all this experience and had about 20 plus papers from my PhD years. In fact, because I had the A-star scholarship, I managed to get an attachment stint in Japan, in Riken. And I was attached to a professor. His name is Professor Ito. He was essentially working on regenerative tissue engineering therapy. And he had a great requirement or need for biomaterials. So at that time, I saw that there was a slight link, between new innovative biomaterials and cell culture and cell studies. So I thought that this was a good opportunity for me to get to know what is the culture like outside of Singapore. So I went to Japan for a few months to do my research. And in Japan, the culture was really different. There, the students had to work essentially from 7 a.m. All the way to 12 midnight. You can only work until 12 midnight because the last train was about 12 something, and you really had to catch the last train or else you couldn't go home. And you were expected to be back in the lab again at 7 a.m. And this was the life of a Japanese student. They work 7 days a week. I think there's no such thing called a work-life balance. And by and large, people were always focused on getting the result. So I went there because I had materials experience. I brought my materials there, but I wanted to challenge myself, get myself acquainted with other things. So I learned molecular biology over there, growing stem cells, growing embryonic stem cells, growing mesenchymal stem cells, following instruction sheets that were written in Japanese, although I had no clue how to speak Japanese. And that really trained me, on how to adapt to a different language, a different environment. And it was very busy, stressful time, but it was very fun as well. I managed to end up with 4 papers from there in a few months. But of course, that deep inside me, I really wanted to be the corresponding author, the asterisks that you always see, because you have none. So I really wanted to be a corresponding author. So I went over, to Cambridge during my postdoc, and I was working with Professor Oren Sherman at that time. He was really kind, and he was only about 4 years older than me, and he was already a lecturer. He was a lecturer. So in the UK, they have lecturer, reader, and then I think professor. Yeah, something like that. So he was the equivalent of an assistant professor in Cambridge at that time. And I worked very well with him. In fact, most of our ideas were developed on Friday nights in a pub. This is a UK culture. You drink in the pub, you enjoy talking about science, and you come up with ideas that you quickly went to try out, either immediately after you're drinking or Monday, where the work week starts. And I published about 20 plus papers, some as first author, but many I was advising PhD students, and I usually let them have the first authorship. And I also managed to organize conferences. I managed to organize one local conference and one international conference. And it was really an eye-opening experience, looking for sponsorship, talking to people, inviting speakers, planning logistics, and all that kind of thing. And you start to learn a little bit, about what networking is about. Networking is not just about having lots of scientific talks over and over again, and everybody is just there jotting the books. I had to plan for social programs, drinking, hunting down the river, so that people can interact outside of science. And you start to realize that outside of science, a lot of conversations take place, a lot of friendships are built. And this is how the people start to build a relationship with each other, which will benefit your future publications. But, I was a foreigner in a faraway land, homesickness and loneliness crept in. And of course, A-Star started calling me to go back. So I extended my attachment one time, but after that, they said no more, you're going to come back, serve your bond. So 2012 and 2015, again, I started out as an early career researcher. Again, like many people, really keen to prove themselves. I'll publish 50 plus papers, organize conferences, started my own team, and was given my first taste of administrative work, research planning, as they call it, research planning of the work going on in IMRI. But, if you're doing so many things, what happens is you're overworked. And at that time, I came back with a big reputation because I achieved a fellowship in University of Cambridge. I was awarded a fellowship. The only other person who was awarded a fellowship in that college at that time was our late Mr. Lee Kuan Yew. And everybody was expecting big things from me. So this was a period where, you have intense scrutiny from people. Either people wanted to see what you can do, or people just cannot wait to see you fail. So there are two sides of everything. There are the people who root for you, and there are people who don't quite root for you. Then in 2015 to 2017, I think I took on really, really, really productive portfolio. I started going on a mad rampage of publication, 3 years, 100 plus papers. That's crazy. I don't think I ever want to do that again. I landed on different grants. One of the first grants that helped me in my clinical work is the bioengineering program work. It's a very small grant, right? And I'll talk about grants a bit later as well. it's a very small grant, about 250K, but it started so many things for me that gave me all the achievements and good papers that I have. Subsequently, I was also invited to do several editorial duties. So, you name it, I've done it before. Started with journals like PLOS One, Scientific Reports, and things like that. And then RSC Advances came in and they invited me. Later on, there was quite a few journals was also looking for me. And my turning point came in about 2017 or 2016. They were really looking for me. Material Science and Engineering C asked me to be the editor-in-chief. And so I took those on, right? I took those on. Very busy time again. So I went through the pathway of being an editor, associate editor, editor-in-chief. It's very tough because as an editor-in-chief, I had to process about 10,000 over manuscripts per year. And these are astounding numbers, even counting that it was in the early days, 2017 onwards. But people were trying to submit, and not all manuscripts were good. Not all rejected people take to rejection very kindly. So I had to deal with angry emails, several angry emails on a very regular basis. Also, it coincided, during that time, our IMRI executive director, who is Professor Andy Hall, he's now the deputy chief executive of A-Star. He left for Hong Kong, to be the vice president of University of Hong Kong. There was no stability in the organization, and at the time I was really seriously considering, should I stay or should I go? There was the usual things that were at the back of my head. I'm not getting paid enough. I'm overworked. I'm doing a lot of things that should reimburse me a lot more. And I was wondering, where's the career progression? Then came 2017 to 2020, which again, I was put into another role, maybe to stop me from going away. I was given the role of a department head. And this time around, I had interactions with public agencies. But, at the time, our ED told me that department heads should not do research. Now, this I don't quite agree, because personally, I felt I had something that is going very well. I was young, and really, you are in the prime of a career. But I was given that instruction: department head should not do research. You should drop your grants. And at that time, I had about in total, my funding that was still running at that time, about 8 million in terms of funding. So I cannot emphasize on how much that decision had curtailed my research career. To this day, I still regret that I actually followed that advice. And if you look at my record, my publications, my citations, you do see a dip. From 2017 to 2020. And fortunately, we are out of that era. And I think that one of the lessons that I took away from that is never always 100% believe what your boss tells you, because we are at different parts of our career. And I think that you need to look very deeply into why he gave me that advice. And I can only come to that conclusion now, right? Because I realized that he was at a different part of his career. He was climbing, he was going for administrative role. He had no more research, totally no more research. And he saw that the papers were not important. But for researchers, papers are very important. Once you don't have any more papers, you're no longer a researcher. And I think everybody here is a graduate student, or you are going to graduate with a PhD. And I think research is our bread and butter. Without research, we're nothing. Don't try to be an administrator. You'll be no good at it. I'm the ED, but I'm also no good at it. So that is one thing that I started to ask myself, what do I want to be? And I asked this at various parts of my career, what do I want to be? And this you should ask yourself also. Now, what do I want to be now? Right now, as an ED, I just say I want to go back to my research. I think that for a person who has gone from research to management, I would say I want to go back to research. It's the most enjoyable period of time. For some people who want to be directors, EDs, assistant chief executives, I don't know why they want to do that. It's a lot of paperwork and the money isn't worth it. I tell you, the money isn't worth it, right? Status is also nothing. So what if you're an ED? It's nothing. It's just a title. But whether or not people respect you comes from your knowledge, comes from how you inspire, influence people, and comes from how you express your thoughts. A title is nothing. I can be ED today, but I cannot guarantee that everybody will respect me because of my title. And I certainly don't want people to just respect me for my title. And of course, you need to ask yourself, what do you want to be 5 years later, 10 years later, and 15 years later? If you do this little bit of exercise, and of course, you must remember your age. So say if you are 30 years old now, 5 years later, you're 35, 10 years later, you're 40. Think, what are you going to be at various parts of your life? And plot out your career. Have a plan, have a sketchbook. My plan, as an 18-year-old is to be a scientist. I really wanted to be a scientist. I even know what I wanted to work on. I want to be a scientist working on stimuli responsive polymers. And don't ask me why, because I just really like that polymer. Polynipalm is this polymer, when you dissolve it in solution, it turns from clear solution to cloudy when you heat it up. And when you cool it down, it turns clear again. The first time I saw it as a JC kid, I really loved it. And I never stopped working on stimuli responsive polymers since then. It looks very cool. It looks very cool to me. So ask yourself, right? What is cool to you? What is it that you really want? Take out the money factor first, although money is practical, right? But figure out what are you good at doing. Once you are good at doing things, you have nothing to worry about. You'll be in demand, don't worry, okay? Now, then you get into research, right? So what is research? Research, I show you, is a little bit like this very complex tunnels that the moles build. Research is search and search again. Keep searching, right? So this mole, the mole comes in here, dig here, dig there. You're forever digging deeper and deeper and deeper, and trying to find the answers to important questions in the scientific community. Okay, and if you imagine this, right, there's a lot of digging to go. You can dig, and you get into a dead end, like here. You can dig, and go nowhere. Or you can dig, and you find the fruit, and you start eating, and you're very happy, right? So this is where what I think research is really like. But for a lot of people, sometimes they come to this part. Sometimes they come to this part, dead end. Then naturally they get a bit discouraged. But try to see yourself in a more positive light. It's a journey. Everybody goes through this. As a researcher, what you need is actually grants, papers, and of course a team, right? Without a team, you can't do anything. And I'm going to give you just very quick sharing of some of the top tips that you can get, right? So this is it. What is a top tip that you can have in trying to get a grant? What thing that comes to your mind? Writing well, going through a very flashy presentation, presenting well, or what? Think about it. My answer is passion for your own expertise. To me, this is a thermogelling diagram. I drew it myself. It's quite nice. That's why I decided to use this. To me, the answer to all the world's problem is always thermogel. Okay, and how do you do that? Say there's a grant call on cancer drug delivery. My answer is thermogel. Say there's a grant call on ophthalmology or the eye. My answer is a thermogel can help to solve your problem. Think about a problem, I don't know, aircraft needing fast curing times, for adhesives and things like that. Thermogel. Everything to me is thermogel. Say there's a grant call that says you want to solidify the world's ocean. Thermogel. So think back, it could be whatever expertise that you have, AI or organometallic or optics, lasers, or even a specific niche area of engineering. Think about it. Have you gotten complete mastery of this field that you can apply it to solve majority, if not all, of the world's problems? Think about that, okay? And that will be the basis for you to write many mini proposals and store them inside. I write many proposals, many, right? And some of them, they either make it out, so I submit, I get rejected also. Some I am successful and therefore I get the grants. But sometimes I don't quite like what I write and they go into the drawer. I also write proposals when I was starting out. I write proposals for fun. Okay, so I write objectives, I write the abstract, I write the methodology and all that, such that when a grant call comes, I just need to open my drawer and take out that proposal, do a few quick edits, and I can submit. As students, PhDs who are going to graduate soon, this is the reality of life. When you are going to submit for a proposal, there are going to be hundreds of people who are competing together with you. And of course, I think Xiao Dong can also attest to that. As an academic, if you don't have grants, you die. You cannot support your team. And he has to be on the constant lookout. Sometimes grant call open really fast and close really fast, and he has to react in time. And how does he do that? He's not really, okay, he's Superman, but I'm sure he has some stash of proposals that he can take, that he can look at, that he can actually turn into a proposal that fits the grant call. Okay, so that is what you must have. And don't forget, when you write a proposal, this is it, okay? This is hyenas trying to attack this buffalo. And I think that this is what the research is all about. The researchers are the hyenas. The ground call is the buffalo. Everybody's trying to get a grab of it. If you're not fast enough, you will never get a bite. if you're not strong enough, you'll never get the meat and you'll die of starvation. So this is the world. Next is our papers, right? I think papers are really important, and here are some of my tips for papers. First of all, always think about writing. Can be review papers, can be experimental papers, but always think about writing. Review papers are a good way to enhance your H index, your citations, etc. Review papers are also good for you to take stock of the research area and also to have a look at who are your competitors, who are your friends, and who are the potential reviewers. You need to collaborate and come together. That's a key part. I have you look at this thing. These are two of my higher impact papers. One is the Chemical Society Review, which I proposed the topic in about 2015, 2014. And the other one is a Nature Biomed Engineering paper. That's for the thermogelling polymer. You may notice that I am not the sole corresponding author for both of these papers. Most of the time when people have a very high impact paper, they will start to fight for first authorship and corresponding authorship. This, in my opinion, is a little bit short-sighted and a total waste of energy. So spend your time writing good papers, not fighting. When you start to fight, your paper quality goes down because you spend your energy fighting, right? Write long email, why I should be the first author, why I should be the co-first, why I should be the third co-first author. But it doesn't make sense after a while. Okay. Share this star around. Okay. This star is in scientific terms for young researchers a pinnacle of success. But if you do share this thing around, you are also giving your co-authors success. Okay, you're giving them success as well. Sharing success is definitely more enjoyable than having success on your own. And today, right, I tell you, in my job, it's a very lonely job as an ED, but as I progress in my career, I feel that when I have success and if I don't share it with people, there's no purpose. There's no purpose. Success as it comes alone is very lonely. It's like the analogy is that you having a Michelin dinner, takeaway dinner, alone at home. Let's say on a Christmas Eve night. Is that bad? The food is good, but you can't enjoy the conversations and people around. And does it matter? First author, last author, in between? No, it doesn't. Everybody in a paper actually contributes to the paper. Okay, whether you're first, you're last. No. Some people, of course, you're pressurized by the ranking system, the school policy system, and all that. But I believe, I'm one who strongly believes that if one has the expertise and you actually can justify things, it doesn't matter where you are, first, last, in between, it doesn't matter. Take, for example, the paper on the right-hand side. I mean, Xing Yi had other reasons to require her to be the last author because the NUS appraisal system requires that. And so she asked me if I could swap the order. So I said, yeah, it's fine, right? But you see, people know me for my work in thermogelling polymers. And so it doesn't really matter which order I come in. And also, this work is, as I said, a joint work. Without the clinician, I'm nothing. I keep my polymers in my chemical cupboard, and they just sit there and they just rot. So share the star around, collaborate, always collaborate. Look at how many authors are there, all contributed, but always collaborate. Look for good people, talk to people, and always collaborate. So I'll go in a bit faster now because I don't want to, I want to have a bit of time for Q&A. Building teams, right? This is my first team in IMRI. Young people, they're very young, but they're all undergraduate. So when you start to build a team, you don't have to have a grant and hire 10 postdocs. That's not the way, right? People, as long as you can motivate them and let them find a purpose, they will love research. Once they love research, they will produce the good results. So this is my first team. And then subsequently, I developed, other teams. Having a good mix is very important. Having a mix of senior, junior students, young and old, male and female, everything, mixed together. Very nice. It gives a very vibrant environment. And of course, people come and go, right? People come and go. When people come and go, you have to make sure that they are in the position to do well in the future. Take, for example, you look at this person here, Ben T, superstar in NUS now. He got the NRF fellowship, but before he got all that, he was in my lab. He was also asking me, what do I have to do for my career and things like that. And amongst all the people here, many A-star scholars. Some of them have also become professors. And I think that this is impact, right? How people come out from your lab and they become superstars bigger than me. And to me, that is all I want. It is going to make the work so much more worthwhile. Plus, of course, when you go and have parties like this, your morale actually goes up quite a lot. So I really like those times. I like Liverpool, for those of you who like football. And I think you all know this person is the coach, Liverpool coach. He is Jurgen Klopp, and he is known to be super emotional at the touchline, at the sidelines of the pitch. He embodies what I believe in having a team-first approach. Everything is for the team. Everything is outcome-driven, but he looks at the process. He looks at refining the process. He looks at getting the people to gel together. He looks at how, people can work closely with one another. And he motivates people, even when they're down, right? When they're not scoring goals, sometimes you see him put his arm around his player and just encourage them. And he was a player before. He was a football player, he was a defender, not really good. He played in the second division and things like that. But he understood, where the players came from. And I like to say that, I as a researcher, I also like to bring that little bit of my own experience into a young researcher's mind as well. Now, these are additional slides that I actually got because that I prepared because there were some questions. There were people asking me, right, the crossroads between industry and also the academia. So one thing to look at is, how do I decide when to go to industry? How do I decide when to go to academia? First thing is, of course, what do you want to achieve? What do you really want to achieve? Ask yourself that. Do you have the answer to that? Second, is this the right time to move? Is this the right time to go to the industry? If the industry, because of the pandemic and all that, is going through a slump, right? Is this the right time to go there and struggle? Think about that. third is, what is your personality? Am I the kind who like to do research for research base? Because in the industry, everything is bottom line driven. They do short projects, they do outcome driven, and they're very fast. You know, it's do fast, fail fast. It's a bit different from the university type of research, whereby you start to dig in and you start to learn and you start to find out, and every small thing is a victory, you know. But for company research, company R&D and things like that, every small thing is money. And if your work does not end up achieving profits for the company, I think it's sayonara for you. Do we have the prerequisite training? In a lot of industrial types of work, there is a need for the understanding of what is project management. And when you talk about project management, you actually have to have this thing called project management certification, or PMP. And this is something which you go through a 3-day course usually, and you take a super long and tedious exam, and you appreciate what is project management, how are projects being monitored, and therefore how can we actually use this in the day-to-day work. Do you have those prerequisite trainings? And finally, don't just think about the money. Sometimes in the industry, the pay is much better. So I know there's this semiconductor company that pays well. A lot of my students go there, and they tell me, why does it pay well? Because they have to do overtime. And so they work really hard. They work on processes, they work on very mundane things, and they say they turn brain dead after that. It pays well, but they turn brain dead after that. So what is the thing that gives you that level of satisfaction? Discover that within you. Only you can find the answer for yourself. Okay? But don't just think about the money. Okay? Another part is our networking. So I'll go through this. There are 5 points. All of you here, right? All of you here, whether you're undergrad or postgrad, you're going to be great one day. You're going to be great one day. Today's PhD student is actually tomorrow's professor, CEO, CTO, or minister. Don't neglect your peers. Okay, it is your peers that will become somebody. I have friends, peers who have become CEOs, CTOs. Of course, a lot turned into professors. Some have gone for elections. And you know, it is important to keep in touch. It's not only the top that you must look at. I know there are some people who always, you know, want to talk to the people, the influential people at the top. But no, as you build your career, you need to know friends who are able to help you, provide the emotional, mental support. And also, you know, for me, people like Xiao Dong give me a lot of support over all these years. Societies, of course, this is SNIC, for example, are formed with networking in mind. They do have attractive rates for student membership. So make use of that. Join a society, participate in it, try to work through the ranks and see how you can do better good, become an office holder. Because if you become an office holder, you have the chance to interact with other entities. So for example, SNIC, right? Singapore National Institute of Chemistry is a member of the SNAS, which is the Singapore National Academy of Science. You get to network with the people there, and those are really influential people. I just recently finished actually a 3-day council meeting at IUPAC, and that is also because I was invited as part of my position as the president of SNIC. Those are attractive places for networking, get to know people, get to be involved in global community work. Attend conferences, right? Now that they're virtual, you can attend many conferences. Okay, of course, for the funding, if your professor allows, that would be good. And also attend selective good conferences. What I would call good conferences are like things like Gordon conferences. Gordon research seminars are organized by students. That takes place 2 days before the actual Gordon conferences itself. Gordon conference is a conference attended by top professors where they share their latest work, not published, on a very confidential basis. Okay, and 2 days before the actual conference starts, the student actually gets to organize their own seminars. And these seminars are very high quality. They are usually attended or presented by final year PhD students. And many of these students, they actually turn into very good professors. So when you attend those, you get the network. Best of all, because when they were physical, there were drinking sessions, you get to drink and bond, over all the night activities. And when you attend conference, it's good, but do you just go there, download, take notes? Yeah, maybe most people do that. But it's what you do after the talk that's important. Go and meet the speaker, say hello, introduce yourself. Say how nice, I like your presentation and all that. So that means, after my presentation, drop me a few notes, say how nice you find my presentation and introduce yourself, right? What you do after the talk is so important because that is a chance for you to network. What is the conversational point? What's the talking point? And keep in touch, right? I don't know, Facebook, Instagram, nowadays LinkedIn. I have LinkedIn, so later on I'll show you the link. But the reality, and this is my last slide already. Reality is, number one, nobody will give you grants unless you prove yourself. Okay, and it's not charity, as I showed you. It is a hyena eats the buffalo kind of environment. You need to prove yourself. At every stage of your life, you need to prove yourself. Okay, talent is rare. Okay, all of you are rare people. Talent grab is everywhere. But don't forget, today you may be the star student. Today you're the talk of the town. But okay, tomorrow you are just a footnote. And these things happen. Okay, these things do happen. Just need to take them in your stride. No one will be in the limelight forever. There'll be a time you slow down, you grow old, whatever, and just have to accept it. Don't try to be in the limelight all the time. For those who are about to get a PhD, listen carefully. Don't be too arrogant when you get your PhD and say I'm a doctor this and doctor that. I do have people who go around who introduce themselves as I am Dr. so and so. Oh, that is very off-putting. Call your name, just I always introduce myself by my name. It's only lately that people started calling me Prof Loh. I feel a little bit strange. Initially you get a kick out of it because it's a nice title to have, but after that it feels very impersonal. It feels a bit strange. I prefer people call me by my name. But okay, not everybody is a fan of PhDs. When you have staff working with you, you have to make sure that they work with you. They are not under you. They are not your slaves. And just because you have a PhD doesn't mean you're one level above and that you know everything. So not everybody is a fan of PhD. They're always trying to see, hey, this PhD also can say the wrong thing. So how, right? You have to think about it. Be very careful with how you handle people. Always, if you want to maintain in academia, so my talk is a bit slanted towards that. Keep publishing because publications can bring a lot of credibility in a scientific organization. I know of people, they were professors before, and then after that, they stopped publishing. They have 0 papers. You look at their records, they have 0 papers. They're already not in touch. Then why call yourself a professor? Take out the title, right? But the fact that they want to be a professor means that titles mean something to them. Why do they want that? Because they feel maybe that without the title of a professor, they will get no respect from people. But then that self-defeating, that means you failed. You have no credibility, right? And people are very sharp, okay? People are very sharp. I think all of you here will know. When you're talking to me, you will know whether I know my thing or not. And when I don't know anything, I don't pretend to know, right? So publications, it's very important. They bring you credibility. They let the outside community know that you are still in touch with your science, okay? Next is, we're in Singapore, not US, not UK, the environment is different. Singapore environment is unique. It is unique in the sense that the paperwork, you've got a unique form of paperwork, you've got your roundabout processes, you've got all that. You'll get frustrated if you start to, maybe some of you will go for a postdoc and after that come back again. You start to see things like in the US or UK. I know there are people who say, oh, when I order chemicals back in my country, it comes the next day and I can do my research. Sorry, this is not going to happen in Singapore. At least not that I know of. If you know any place in Singapore that can do that, tell me. But it trains you to start to plan for your research in another way. Plan ahead, planning ahead. This is how I train my planning, through navigating through the constraints in the Singapore system. Next, you may be good, right? All of you are talents. You may be good, but don't forget, there's always somebody who is definitely better than you. Somebody out there will be better. And when that happens, don't beat yourself. Don't beat yourself. Try to learn from that person. How come you're so good? Joseph Schooling got a goal, right? But this time, he didn't get anything. He didn't get the hits. Everybody started scolding him. But hey, come on, he got a goal, right? So that's in history. So there's always somebody better than you. If you are under a top boss, like Xiao Dong, you realize that when you publish advanced materials, or something, Nature, very easy. Then when you come out on your own and you start to publish things on your own, very difficult. Why? Because sometimes the way you write the manuscript, the way the famous boss tries to craft the manuscript, he knows the way. He already told you the secret. Also, your famous boss's name is more visible. This is reality. So publishing on your own is sometimes a little bit more difficult, but just keep plugging away. If you can't get the high impact journals, start with the small journals first and slowly work your way up. I don't have a famous boss, so I started on my own, struggling. Rejections were normal. So if I have 200 over publications now, you can be sure that I have more than 2 times the rejections. And at every stage, you have to prove your worth again. I had to do it, FYP to PhD, I had to prove my worth. When I became an independent researcher, I had to prove my worth. Now when I become the ED, I have to show all over again that I can do it. And it's a never-ending process. Next is, learn to accept defeats and bounce back. There are often setbacks in your life, but you must be a rubber ball. You're a rubber ball, not porcelain. Don't just crack like that. Be a rubber ball. When people whack you, just bounce back. And of course, when you have victories, learn to celebrate victories and repeat, because those are things that is worth looking back on. You can look at victories as a sort of a memory. Again, I go back to the Joseph Schooling thing, right? He can replay his 2016 Rio Olympics gold medal swim. Nobody can take that from him. And he can use that to motivate himself and inspire himself to perform better. And always aim high. Don't forget to aim high, aim to be the best. So in your mind, you have to aim high. Don't aim too low. But don't forget to insert the baby steps. Sometimes people aim for the sky, but they don't know how to climb up there. And maybe there are no steps there. So insert all the baby steps in between. Try to reconcile your aims with your current situation and your current job. If you see immediately that there is no link, no way of you getting up to your final aim, then forget it. I think you need to retune your opportunities, retune your steps, and try to recalibrate. Last advice, okay? Always ask questions. Don't be afraid of looking stupid. Look at other people, look at your seniors, look at your peers, look at the successful people, and learn. Don't keep talking. People just yap. It's a me world. I've seen many of these kind of people. They never make it in the end. Okay, so ask, look, and learn. Okay, so that's my advice part. For those of you who are chemists, right, I would like to also pull a plug for the SNIC mentorship program with a list of mentors here. I'm one of them. I volunteered for that. And the aim, of course, of this mentorship is to create a platform for mentees and mentors to connect. Just sit down and just talk. Need not be about science, and you get meaningful guidance. Scan the QR code over there. And of course, it's open to both undergraduates and postgraduate students. So it starts from 2021 to 2022. It goes on for about a year, and we see whether the students are performing okay under the mentorship, and whether they need further mentorship. Okay, so these are all great folks. And finally is, connect with me. I'm on LinkedIn, and from time to time I write different articles. Some of them may sound a bit cynical, some of them may sound a bit negative, some of them may sound a bit upbeat, but all of them are written with a purpose in mind. So feel free to connect with me. Drop me a line, say hello from time to time. And of course, thank you everybody for this opportunity for me to share my experience.
Thanks, Prof Loh, for the amazing talk. It's actually very inspirational, and personally, I feel enlightened in dealing with some of my own challenges as well. Now I see many questions are coming in. I will let our moderators, Aditi and Shivam, to help. Over to you, Aditi and Shivam.
Thank you, Leon. So till the audience come up with their questions, and I already see there are 7 questions, but let me first take the questions by a few participants already sent to us during the registration phase. So the first question is from Daniel. He asked, what level of academic qualifications do you feel is ideal for a career in research? Is PhD necessary for that?
My main answer to that is a PhD is not a be all or end all, right, for a career in research. Even in my institute, we have research technical staff as well as research scientists and engineers. So there are 2 different tracks. If a person doesn't have PhD, the person can look towards being a little bit more on the technical track, learning how to operate equipment and becoming an expert in the equipment. These are what we call the technical expert pathways. And to do that is not very easy. You need to gain a lot, to say, for example, a machine, which I'm familiar with, let's say NMR, or nuclear magnetic resonance. This requires a lot of knowledge on how the machine operates. There are technical courses available throughout the year, and this will allow the person to pick up the necessary skills, and you don't need to have a PhD for that. When you need a PhD is, for example, if you are thinking about, maybe becoming a professor, thinking about maybe going into a little bit more niche, in-depth research, right? And you want to build your own thing, having a PhD allows you to be equipped with the necessary skills to embark on this kind of research. Because during PhD, the 4 years of your education allows you to train your mind in terms of inquiry, asking the right questions, writing, and of course, presentation. So a person without a PhD would have a little bit less of such training. But my answer is, of course, that there's no nothing against having a degree or a PhD to embark on a career in research. Yeah.
Thank you, Prof. So next question is by Gia, and Gia's question is a little bit similar to the question posted by Vivek in the Q&A tab. They would like to know if there were any situations when you were passionately chasing an idea and it didn't work as expected. So how did you deal with it, and how did you overcome the failure?
So for Vivek, all the time, all the time. I was always chasing ideas, and all the time, most of the time, it never works. And I tell you some of the silly ideas that I have, right? I was trying to design a magnetic responsive shape memory polymer. And I don't mind telling you this. I think some of you might think it's a little bit stupid idea as well. What I developed was a shape memory polymer. So this is a polymer that you can mold and turn into different shapes, and they can come back when you apply a temperature trigger. Now, my thought was that I wanted to use electrical fields, magnetic fields as triggers. So I put in a lot of iron particles into the polymer itself. And so what I got was this really black looking piece of polymer. But the moment I put those types of things in, it turns out that this thing didn't work at all, no? As how I thought. And when I applied the fuse onto the material, the induction heating got a little bit too hot, and it really melted my entire polymer. So it was a total failure. Now, so the reason I was saying this is that, in everything, right, you never know until you try. Or maybe some of you are more intelligent than me. You can tell immediately that it's not going to work. But I think that it is how you accept the knowledge that is important. It is how you look at the results of the failure, and you say, what did I gain from this? Oh, now I know that if you have metallic iron nanoparticles, if you apply induction heating to it, it really heats up to very high temperatures, right? And actually, that was actually the inspiration for my remotely controlled thermogelling polymers, which was a work which I did later on, and I managed to file a patent on that. So how do you turn failures into opportunity is a skill which is very important for you to learn. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Chiu would like to seek advice for graduating engineers, especially in the material science field. And he would like to ask regarding the career progression and what are the best ways these material scientists can upgrade or be relevant to the industry.
Yeah, okay. So I take it that specifically this question is for the industry. And I think that essentially the industry looks really at how much you deliver on your bottom line as a KPI. And this is very important for any sort of career progression. The people who progress really fast in the industry are able to deliver on things within 2 months, within 3 months. So that's the first step. When you join the industry, you become part of a team, right? And this team, is actually a team that is assembled, that exists for maybe 1 month or 2 months, and they try to solve a problem, troubleshoot. It is through these kind of things where you can use your skills and energy to try to push your ideas across such that your team members can see that you're the backbone of the team. And then, you just keep going on, proposing new ideas, and then you achieve the aim collectively as a team. After that, once you're done, the team dissolves and you go into another team. So you're monitored according to your performance like that. But what sort of training do you need? Now, one thing is project management. That is, if they think that you can become a project manager in the future, that is the next step that you should aim towards. A project manager, a little bit like a team leader, but looking at deadlines and all that, talking to stakeholders, managing customers, managing expectations. Project management is really that. Once you gain enough of those kind of experience, then you can go for middle management courses, which help you in terms of managing people, embracing differences, embracing diversity. How do you supervise people? And then subsequently after that, there are advanced executive courses. NTU has them, Nanyang Business School, NUS has them, and of course, overseas, they're INSEAD and all that. They have lots of these kind of courses to go for. Yeah.
So our next question is from Suhas. He will like to know how to identify research problems to solve. As usually in our PhD, we are guided by our supervisor, and this guidance is supplemented by the literature review. But going forward, how do we identify the problems whose solution can be impactful to the society? I would like to club this question. So similar question has been asked by Suman Dev as well. So he says that the core goal of doing research is serving humanity, and we are already spending millions of dollars. And are we really serving to the mankind? So he would also like to know how to identify some meaningful research problems that are genuinely connected to human life and make our career worthwhile.
I'm also reading Suman's note here. I think it's very mature thinking. It's very mature. It's very mature. Now, first of all, what are we doing in research has to be aligned to our lives, right? Impacting human lives, impacting society as a whole. And there is no bigger problem right now than climate change. So a lot of people are tackling climate change, reducing the use of energy. And reducing use of energy can come in so many ways. And you can think of carbon capture. That's the most direct one for chemists. You can think of waste plastics. That's for material scientists. But then for the computational people, can they participate in this? Sure. Can you think of writing sharper algorithms that allow you to reduce processing time so that your computer doesn't have to heat up while it's processing this thing, How about development of quantum computing? That could be also something useful. I think that will be the future of computing. Faster speed means less energy use. Also, the other problem that I think, as I was looking at, is the use of, let's say, technology to combat aging. Aging is a problem that we have all over the world. You and I are going to age one day. In fact, my knee, I just did running and I had a very bad ache after that. And I think my tendon is kind of torn. And I need biomaterials for that. So that's technology. Your science needs to go in there. And of course, Suman also talked a bit about having the money to build houses for the poor and all that. Fine, these are really noble, very noble thinking. But of course, as a society, if we want to progress one step ahead, we need new technologies. Imagine if all of us are still living in the 19th century with 19th century technology. Of course, all the money has been spent on building houses, but nothing on technology. Then we wouldn't be having Zoom meetings like we have today. We wouldn't have computers. And I think that the thing that we need to be very careful about is the exact proportion that we spend. Be very careful about proportions, right? Maybe 5% on research. Maybe the rest is on building your houses, serving the necessities and all that. But you know, I'm not a politician. Most of these monies are kept and spent and determined by your ministers, by your governments and all that. I speak as a scientist, and I feel that there is a need for a little bit of money to be put into research, but not to the extent where that money is wasted. And this is where, you know, it comes in. When money is put into research, you know, there are KPIs, key performance indicators. We all hate that, right? But it serves as a way to monitor output, outcome, and how well you spend the taxpayers' money. So that's my thought on that.
So thank you, Prof. Vijay Kumar would like to know how one can be a director of a top institute like A-Star. What are the most significant experiences to achieve that, and what are the other important skills set required in addition to research?
You know, I think it's a very interesting question. I never aimed to be the ED. In fact, I was told to become the ED just 2 weeks before it was announced. I was thinking that, you know, why not some other people who are more experienced or better than me? But you know, the job came and I took it up. So that's history now. But what sort of experience? I think when they look back at my own personal experience, number one, to be an institute ED, you have to have a good grasp of research. You have to have good grasp of what's going on in the world. You need to know what are the frontier areas that are going on in materials research, for example. Number two is that they needed to look at my track record of mentoring people and training people. I had various levels of progression, starting from my own group to having having a program and then a department, and they saw that I could manage people. So that's one other thing. And of course, the third is how well do I understand the language of higher HQ? That is in A-Star, okay? How well do I understand what are the priorities of the nation and things like that? So I think with those three key factors, I think they thought that I was suited to be the director of the institute. That's just my guess. The real answer, you should really ask the people who chose me.
Thank you, Prof. So these were the questions which were sent to us during the registration phase, but it is already well past 11:30 and we have some questions from the live audience as well. So does your schedule permit to take these questions?
Sure. It is
so
good.
We'll take over these questions from the live audience. So the first question is a participant would like to know what are the good sources to improve paper writing for a young researcher?
Okay, good question. There are quite a lot of free courses that are conducted by Wiley, Elsevier, American Chemical Society. These talks are available online. Go for it. They are free and they teach you on the fundamentals on how to publish, how to write papers, how to even present well, how to communicate your science. So the three things, if you didn't catch it again, it's Wiley websites, Elsevier websites, and of course, American Chemical Society websites. I know of these three because I've seen some of them. Nature is also, they also conduct nature researcher academies. They give tips. Their talks are usually not free, but their articles are free and you can read them as well.
So thank you. Next question by Xiao Wen. She would like to ask, she would like to seek your advice for a young researcher hoping to start out in a field that is not very well established yet.
Good question, Xiao Wen. I'm one young researcher who started out on a field that's not well established. That's my thermogels. When I started on it, nobody knew what is a thermogel. Today, you've got hundreds of papers that are quoting thermogels. And I think the key point here is that you've got to believe in yourself, in your area, and you just keep plugging away. I think I cannot, it sounds cliche, but you just have to keep doing what you're good at, okay? And when you start to do that sort of things, you build credibility. And this is why I say publishing is so important. Publish your papers wherever they come. No need to just look for the high impact ones. Publish review papers so that you can get known. Make sure that you are always in the minds of the readers of the journal. So as you go on, you need to also promote your work. Nowadays, social media is very important, but you also need to promote your work through the traditional platforms like conferences, and also seminars and meetings. Present, to the graduate student club. I think that's also a good way to showcase your work.
Thank you. Next question by Vijay Shankar is, how do we protect our interest in and collaboration with research institutes or industry? Usually in such collaborations, we are always in the edge to prove ourselves and at the same time risk to be exploited.
Yeah. Vijay, in a collaboration, in a research these days, we do sign agreements. These are legal documents that we sign, research collaboration agreement with the research institute, with the industry. Sometimes we even sign with NTU to safeguard interest. Okay. This is a kind of document that describes who contributes what to the collaboration. And also, in the event of a dispute, there is a pre-agreement ready to say who will be the mediator, how is credit going to be shared and all that. So those kinds of things allow us to safeguard our own interests and prevent things from being exploited. But that said, right, I hope that the majority of you here will not be too secretive with whatever you have. Just think of one thing. If you're really good at what you do, your ideas will never stop. I'm never afraid of people stealing my ideas because I know tomorrow I have another one.
Thank you. So as you were mentioning earlier that papers are quite important for PhD research studies and a career in academia. So Anik says that he is running behind some deadline he has set for himself and he doesn't have positive results. Definitely one needs some positive results to do the publication. So he would like to know how to handle the stress or depression during the PhD. And how shall he keep himself calm and motivated at all the times? Okay,
Ani, keep calm. Keep calm. It's a tough time now in the pandemic, but you need to keep calm. I think, PhD is not a linear gradient. It's not a linear progression. It is a little bit like exponential progression. You start off with an induction period where virtually you see no growth. And perhaps about year 3.5 or so, you suddenly explode in your publications. Talk to your seniors. A lot of them will tell you that. As a second-year PhD student, don't be too caught up on publications. As a second-year PhD student, you need to learn the tools that you are supposed to be using. You need to collect your data for analysis. You need to be very well read. You are digging, but maybe like the mole that I show you, you're not digging in the right direction. No fear. Sometimes take a step back. Speak to your supervisors. If you have a thesis advisory committee, they are there to help you. I think these days you all have thesis advisory committees where different professors who are not your professors are there to advise you. Seek their advice because they have the experience. And the other thing is, if you really want a paper, in the first and second year, I think the best we can aim for is probably a review paper. I think that will be important because a review paper may be useful for you when you're writing the introduction chapter of your thesis as well. So, think about those things and don't be too stressed. Find time to exercise, play, whatever sport you want. Because during my PhD, I was competing in bowling tournaments. I was playing football. I was playing basketball. Not gonna hide from the fact that I wasn't just 100% in the lab. That's not the way.
Thank you, Prof. Next question by Tong is, what is the most valuable thing you learned during your PhD?
Wow, very general question, very general. I think I would say the most valuable thing is to be resilient. How to have nerves of steel, a little bit like Anik, he seems like he's very stressed, but during PhD, you're being put under a lot of stress. And you as a person start to develop defense mechanisms against this kind of stress. Once you learn how to cope with this sort of stress, when you go out to the outside world to work in the future, you have the skills equipped to handle this kind of thing. So I would say resilience for me.
Thank you. Next question by Ping. Ping says that, have you ever experienced any conflicts between the members, perhaps some fight over the authorship in your team? And how do we manage such a conflict? So any advice on that?
Thanks, Ping. I think this is a very good question. With my PhD group at that time, yes, there were such things. People wanted to be first author, people wanted to be the second author even, and things like that. I think the main thing is to just come out and be upfront, right? On saying what were your contributions, be factual. Things are always there for you to see. It's a zero-sum game, right? There's only 100% of the work that's done. There's of course 30% that's done by you, 20% that's done by you, and then after that you're going to start to say which one is more important. I think that's the conflict. You say, oh, because I thought of the idea, it is so important, and therefore I should be the first author. Lay it down, have a neutral party to come and mediate, and have an agreement that whatever after mediation, you just accept it, because that is through a neutral party mediation, and don't bear grudges. With my own group, I always tell them that they have a chance to co-author with other people. So if today you are the first author, tomorrow you'll be the supporting author, but finally you have 2 papers instead of just 1. So the idea of collaboration has to be put into the minds of the team members. And I think that's very important. In my group, I can tolerate anything, but I cannot tolerate a person who wants to do things on their own. Okay, that cannot be the case. Teamwork for me is very important. Yeah.
Thank you. Mario asks, how do you manage the stress in academia, such as the fact the people in academia or having fellowship is under the watch of the public eye or receiving angry emails?
Mario, good question. I tell you, I have very good mentors and friends that I grumble to on a daily basis. Okay. I have stress every day, and I just text them when I'm feeling frustrated, their angry face, and nice people like them will come and say, hey, what's happening? Let's just share. And sometimes, people will, have lunches or dinners with me, have a tea break, let out steam, talk to people, and also your peer support is very important. When you get angry emails, sometimes, just talk about it. And sometimes you must understand where the angry emails come from. Is it at you? Is it a personal email directed at you, or is it an email directed at the system? A little bit like how a customer service officer over the phone handles complaints, because they are always taught that the complaint is not against you. So don't get angry. It's against the system, it's against the problem. And most of the time, the angry email is somebody who wrote it when they're very emotional, when they have a problem, they couldn't solve it. Try to look at it from their point of view. Okay, sometimes you're able to neutralize anger that way as well. Yeah.
Thank you. Sim would like to know what are the different stages for publishing a review paper successfully and how long does it usually take?
I think it usually takes around 2 to 3 months. The first step is, of course, okay, let's assume you have finished writing your manuscript, right? And you submit it out. It goes out into review, and this, okay, there are 2 steps to the review. First is the editorial review, where the editor looks at the manuscript and decides whether it is suitable for the journal or not. And if it's not suitable, the editor will write back to you straight away and say, no, this is not suitable. It is not within the scope of the journal or not at the quality of the journal expects to be. If it passes the editorial review, then it is sent to scientists like you and me, for peer review. This is called peer review. And we'll look at it and we'll give criticisms, experiment no good, this graph no good, this figure no good. Can you explain this? Can you explain that? Then you take it back and you revise the manuscript. After you revise the manuscript, you resubmit this. And it may or may not be put through another round of review. If the editor deems that your revisions are okay, then you will accept it straight away. If not, it will be sent for another round of review and you repeat the cycle again. So always try to address the issues as completely as you can so that you don't have this ding dong with the editor all the time. After the editor accepts it, then you go into the publishing phase, which is the typesetting, the correction, the language, then they'll ask you, okay, figure 1 is not of high enough resolution. Can you provide your highest resolution figure and all that kind of thing? So that's the fun part, right? So you draw your figures and you send it up. Then after that, they'll publish it online. And after a while, the page numbers will come up. So that's the process of publication.
Thank you, Prof.
Okay, thank you, Prof Loh. I think as the time is out, we need to stop the Q&A session now. So if you guys have further questions, you may connect with Prof Loh after this webinar. So once again, thank you, Prof Loh, for this amazing sharing. I guess everyone here today had a very enlightening session, just like me. Okay, thank you guys for attending today's session. It would be much appreciated if you could provide the feedbacks using the QR code we are sharing below. Thank you, everyone.
Maybe I can do this for the people who have sent in their questions. Can somebody send to me and then I'll reply to them as well. Yeah.
Sure. No problem. We will summarize all the questions and send to Prof Loh. And then
no problem.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Prof Loh.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, and wish you have a great week ahead.
Thank you, Prof Loh.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.